Today we are going to do soccer on Sunday. All right, soccer on Sunday. This is a Magic Treehouse book. I started it with some friends last Friday, and we read the first couple of chapters, so I'll catch you up. So, in the first couple of chapters, we learned Jack and Annie are once again on a mission. They use the magic treehouse where they climb up in the treehouse and they have a note and they touch a book and say where they want to go, and the magic treehouse takes them to different times and places. And this time they have traveled to Mexico City. There's a picture from the book. They have gone back to Mexico City in 1970 when the World Cup soccer tournament is being held there. And they have tickets to the final match, which is like the championship game. And they apparently have some pretty amazing seats. And there goes my lovely dog. Sorry about that. Um, so they are headed, hold on, guys. They are headed to the arena where it takes place. And that's where we are starting on chapter 3. They are on their journey to find the stadium so they can get there before the match starts. Chapter 3, hurry up for the World Cup. Look, insurgents. Jack points to the sign on the large building that said, Mercedad Insurgents. I'm probably saying that wrong. That's it. The metro we're supposed to catch. The metro is a subway. Does that make sense? You remember we talked about subways when we talked about New York City? So the metro is the subway. Jack and Annie joined the crowd heading into the insurgents building. They strolled down the corridor between the stalls, selling ponchos and beaded bags and wooden animals and baskets woven from palm leaves and silver jewelry. Tons of silver jewelry. The smell of sizzling meat came from the food stands. Nothing looked like the train or the subway station. Jack finally stopped near a group of men in sombreros. Sombreros are the giant hats that they wear. The men in sombreros were playing guitars and violins and trumpets. He turned to Annie. This doesn't feel right, he said. He yelled above the noise. We must have made a mistake, Annie yelled back. Let's get out of here, said Jack. We're wasting time. He and Annie turned and hurried back down the corridor between the stalls. They wove around the shoppers until they escaped through the giant market entrance. A soft, warm rain had started to fall. I don't get it, said Jack. He pointed to the sign, and it says, Mercedad Insurgents. Look at Benny's notes, said Annie. Jack pulled out the directions. Oh no, Benny wrote Metro Insurgents, not Mercedado Insurgents. I'll ask for help, said Annie. She took the directions and walked to an old man reading the newspaper. Excuse me, sir. Where is the Metro Insurgents, please? The old man pointed up the street. Thanks, said Annie. She ran back to Jack and handed him the sheet of directions. Jack stuffed them back into his backpack. Hurry, or we'll be late, said Jack. Jack and Annie ran up the street through the warm, drizzling rain. They stopped when they came to an overpass and jammed with cars and trucks. So they're going down a sidewalk and they've come to an overpass and there's cars and trucks all over it. In a sunken plaza below, in a round concrete building covered with posters and murals, one of the signs on the building said Plaza Insurgents. Another one said Metro Station. That's it, said Jack. He and Annie ran down to the plaza. The plaza is a square area. Sometimes it has parks and stuff in it, but this time it sounds like it's got a building in it. That's it, said Jenny. He and Annie ran to the plaza. They hurried by the fountain, the vendors, the snack bars until they rounded the entrance for the metro. Remember, the metro is the subway. They stepped into the station. The noise was deafening, even louder than the market. Hordes of people rushing up and down the stairs. Jack and Annie joined the stream of traffic going down. Beyond the stairs were rows of turnstiles. How do we do this? Said Annie. Watch what everyone else is doing, said Jack. One at a time, people were dropping a single coin into slots in the turnstiles, then passing through. Jack pulled out the 2 pesos, those are coins, that he had in his backpack and gave one to Annie. Copying everyone else, they passed through the turnstiles onto the metro platform. That wasn't so hard, said Annie. Another huge crowd was waiting on the sweltering platform next to the train. Jack pulled out the directions again. Red line to Pinto Sacruz, he shouted to Annie above the noise. Then the blue line to Taxaquique. Then the last stop to get to Aztec Stadium. Easy, yelled Annie. Really? Thought Jack. The train was rolling in. Red line? Annie shouted to a woman. The woman nodded. The metro train came to a stop. The doors opened and the passengers spilled off the train. The people on the platform surged forward. Jack grabbed Annie's hand and they moved with the crowd. But before they could even get close to the train, the bell rang and the doors slammed shut. People left on the platform jumped back as the train pulled away. We'll get the next one, Jack shouted. Soon another train rolled in. Jack grabbed Annie's hand and they surged forward with the crowd. They were pushed and shoved as they tried to get through the doorway. Finally, they were inside. Safe, said Jack, collapsing into a seat. But they were nearly squashed as more passengers piled onto the metro. More and more kept cramming in until people were practically sitting on Jack and Annie's laps. The bell rang and the doors closed. The train pushed away from the station. As it rumbled through the dark tunnel, the air in the car was suffocating. Jack could feel the sweat trickling down his face and the back of his neck. What's our stop, Janet? Annie yelled to Jack. He reached into his backpack, and the paper with the directions weren't there. He wrestled his backpack off and looked inside. The sheet of paper wasn't there either. Do you have our directions? He shouted to Annie. No, you have them. I must have dropped them, said Jack, and he panicked. Here's the picture of Jack panicking in the subway. See how he's searching for in his backpack for that list? Don't worry, Annie said. Excuse me, she said, yelled at the woman standing over them. How do we get to Aztec Station? The woman shrugged. She asked the man, who asked another woman, but the train stopped and all 3 people hurried off without answering Annie's question. So there's the people she asked. So Jack and Annie aren't sure what to do next. Should we get off too? Said Annie. I don't know. I don't know if it's the right station. They're not announcing where we are. New passengers piled into the car and the aisle became even more crowded. Once again, the train took off. Jack and Annie were squished in their seats by passengers. Where is Aztec Stadium? Jack yelled to no one in particular. Get off at Pinto Screws, the man shouted above the roar. The man said more, but Jack couldn't hear him. Before he could ask the man to repeat the directions, the train stopped and the man pushed his way out the doors. Is this Pinto Station? Jack shouted to Annie. He looked around wildly to try to find a sign. This is a nightmare. Is this Pinto Cruz? She yelled to a teenager in a large backpack. I don't know, the girl said. Check the map. She pointed to a large map on the far wall of the train. Oh, look, Jack said, but it was impossible to get to the map. The aisle was already filled with new passengers. Too late. The metro doors closed and the train thundered on, oh, sorry about the yawning, through the dark tunnel. Chapter 4. Follow me. Wait till we stop again, Jack. Annie said to Jack. But what if we missed our stop? What if that was Pinto Cruz? We're stopping again. We have to check the map, said Annie as the train slowed for the next stop. Jack and Annie both readily jumped to their seats. But when the metro doors jerked open, hardly anyone got off. Instead, new travelers pushed their way into the crowded car. Jack and Annie could hardly move to breathe, much less stand up to check the map. No way. Jack shouted at him. Can someone help us? She called. We need to get to the World Cup gate. Where's the stop to Pinto Cruz? But nobody seemed to hear. This is hopeless. Then he heard a small voice shouting from above the noise of the train. Excuse me, pardon me, please. A Mexican boy squeezed through the crowd to get to Jack and Annie. Did you say you were going to the World Cup game? He shouted. Yes, said Annie. Me too. Can I help you? Yes. We don't know where to get off. It's the next stop. Pinto Cruz, said the boys. You can follow me. As soon as the train stopped, Jack and Annie followed the boys, squeezing past the people to get to the door. Excuse me, they said. Then the three of them popped off the hot, airless train. Half the people on the train got off with them. Man, that was crazy, said Jack, covered in sweat. Thank you, Annie said to the little boy. It's not over yet. We have to catch the blue line to Cascale, Taxaquille. Can we come with you? Said Annie. We lost our directions. Of course, this way, pronto. Jack and Annie followed the boy down the blue tunnel to the corner of the blue line. Hordes of people were waiting for the metro line there, too. My father told me to go to the end platform. The last train cars never are as crowded. As the train rolled into the station, Jack and Annie followed the boy down the platform. They sped up when the doors opened. Just before they closed again, the three of them jumped into the last car. The boy was right. This car wasn't as crowded at all. They got good seats together. Jack was relieved. Thanks for helping us, he said. You're welcome. My name is Roberto. He held out his hand. Jack shook Roberto's hand. I'm Jack. And I'm Annie, said Annie, shaking his hand. Are you going to the game alone, Roberto? Yes. My parents gave me a ticket for my birthday present. It's the best present I've ever gotten. Today is your birthday? Asked Jack. Roberto nodded. I turned 10 years old today. Ooh, he turned double digits. I'm 10 too, said Annie, but Jack's 11. Why didn't your mom and dad come with you? They could only afford one ticket, said Roberto. I have 8 brothers and sisters. It's my job to tell them everything I see. They will all be waiting at home for my stories about the great game. He smiled. The train began to slow down. We get off here, Roberto said. Jack and Annie followed Roberto off the metro, down the underground passageway, then out into the station with a breeze. The wet air Jack felt thousands of times better. Now we take tram line 53, said Roberto. That's like a subway above ground, right? Said Jack. Yes, come with me. Here's a picture of that where they're going to the train station, or like he called it the tram station. Come with me, said Roberto, and he led Jack and Annie across the walkway of the trolley tracks. Hundreds of people stood in line waiting to board the packed trams. They joined one of the lines, and Jack pulled out some pesos. Everyone's going to the World Cup Championship game, said Roberto. People have come from Mexico, all the way from South America and Europe to see this game. Did you hear that it would be a game of a lifetime? Absolutely, said Roberto. Did you know that Pelé is playing? Annie asked. Of course. Pelé the Great, said Roberto. He made over 1,000 goals. His whole team is fantastic. They're called the Beautiful Team. That's cool, said Jack. 3 pesos, the driver at the door to the tram. Roberto reached in his pocket, but Jack stopped him. I got it, he said, and he handed over 3 pesos. Thank you, Jack, said Roberto. Then they all hopped onto the train bound for World Cup Championship game. There were no empty seats, so they stood in the aisle and held onto the pole. As the tram began to move, Jack, Annie, and Roberto huddled together and talked excitedly. Brazil has the best team in history, said Roberto, but Italy has a great team too. Did you hear the story of Italy playing West Germany in the semifinal match? No. What happened? Said Annie. Even though Italy was behind, they never gave up. Italy scored 5 goals in extra time. He heaved a big sigh. I can't believe it. I never thought in my life I would be here today to see this game. Me either. Jack laughed. Not in a million years. We'll arrive at Aztec Stadium soon, said Roberto, looking out the window. Thanks for your help, said Jack. He really liked this kid. He was amazed that a 10-year-old could get around the city so easily. Do you go to the stadium a lot? No, this is my first time, but I've practiced this trip in my mind many times. My father told me exactly what to do. Do you play soccer? Annie asked. I try, but I'm not that great, said Roberto. Me either, but I love it. But I'm not great, said Annie. Same with me, said Jack. I love it, but not great. They all laughed. By the time the tram arrived at the station near the stadium, the clouds had disappeared. Bright sunshine was replaced the drizzling rain. The steam was rising from the gigantic parking lot. That is Aztec Stadium, Roberto said, pointing out the window to the enormous concrete building. Cool, said Jack. He looked at his watch. It was 11:35. 25 minutes till kickoff, said Roberto. We made it. All because of you, Roberto, said Annie. Stay with me, the Mexican boy said, and I'll take good care of you. Chapter 5, High in the Sky. When the doors opened, Roberto led Jack and Annie off the tram. They walked down the ramp from the station and headed into the huge parking area. Aztec Stadium was named for the people who built this entire part of Mexico many hundreds of years ago, said Roberto. Really, said Jack. He'd read about the Aztec Empire. He could imagine the enormous stadium being similar to an Aztec pyramid. Thousands of pec state. Let me start that sentence again. Thousands of spectators flooded the parking lot. Here's a picture. There's the picture. They wore bright summer clothes and wide brimmed hats. Vendors walked along the big cars selling Brazilian, Italian, and Mexican flags. The kids were waving souvenir programs, soccer shirts, and caps for sale. Annie and Jack followed Roberto to the nearest entrance. Annie held out their 2 tickets. That way to gate G, the official said as he pointed towards one of the entrance. Roberto showed the man his ticket and pointed the same direction. Hooray! Sitting near you, said Roberto. Me too, said Jack. Jack and Annie and Roberto followed the crowd through Gate G into the giant stadium. They looked in the stands. Dozens of tiers of seats rose above the green soccer field. The rows were steep, and it looked as if spectators in the highest rows might fall straight down onto the field. This place is huge, said Jack. Where do we go now? Said Janny. My father said to ask an official, said Roberto, looking around. Over there. He led Jack and Annie to an usher in a uniform standing at the bottom of the aisle. Can you please tell us where our seats are? Annie asked, showing the woman the ticket. The When the woman looked at the ticket, her eyes grew wide. You have some of the best seats in the stadium, she said, and she pointed to the section closest to the field. Over there, second row, right on the aisle. Yay, said Jack. The guard at the embassy had been right. They did have seats. That would help them get close enough to Pele to learn the secret of greatness for him. Jack turned excitedly to Roberto. Where's your seat? She showed the ticket to the usher. Where do I go? Oh, you're in the same line as your friends. Fantastic. But I'm afraid your seat is in a different section, said the usher. She pointed way up. It's near the very top, high in the sky. The smile left Roberto's face, but it returned. I better go. It was great to meet you. You too, said Jack. Goodbye, said Annie and Jack, and he turned to start up the steep steps to the stadium. Wait, Roberto, Annie called and hurried the steps behind him. Jack followed her. Listen, I want to trade seats with you, she said, and she held out her ticket. Really? Thought Jack. What about our mission? Oh, no, you cannot, said Roberto. Yes, you can, said Annie. Please, we have to trade seats. But why, said Roberto. Because it's your birthday. And if you have a good suit, eat, you can tell your 8 brothers and sisters and your parents all about the game. So it will be like 11 people are getting a good seat, not just one. Well, that makes sense, Jack thought. Still, he was amazed by Annie's generosity. But no, I cannot. But yes, you can, said Annie. She grabbed Roberto's ticket and put her own ticket in his hand. You guys have fun. She started up the steps. Jack felt a wave of guilt. Wait, stop. That's not fair. Maybe I should give up my seat. No, it's okay, said Annie. I'll give up mine. Roberto laughed. You're both too kind. I cannot take either of your seats. He handed Annie his ticket and took his back. No, please, I won't. Wait, I have another idea. We could take turns. I'll switch with Roberto for the first half, and you switch with him for the second half. Perfect, said Annie. That way, Roberto can get a great view of the whole game, and you and I can get a great view for a half of the time. Right, said Jack. He pulled the ring of truth off his finger and slipped it onto Annie's hand and spoke softly to her. The person who's sitting close to the field should wear it. Be sure you check it if you think you've discovered Pele's secret. Got it. I'll give it back to you at halftime. Right, said Jack. How long till halftime, Roberto? 15 minutes. Plenty of time, said Jack. He looked at his seat number, A26. Okay, I'll find you at the seat. A26, Annie. Wait for me. Thank you a million times, Jack. No problem. See you guys later. And he started up the stairs. Have fun in the sky, called Annie. I will. Jack felt great as he started up the steps to the top of the stands. He was sure he'd done the right thing, especially since it was Roberto's birthday. But as Jack climbed higher and higher, his spirits fell. The stands were so high, he wondered if he'd be able to see anything. By the time he reached the top rows, he was out of breath. He showed the ticket usher his seat and she pointed towards his seat. He squeezed past people and collapsed onto the bench. From his seat, the field looked a million miles away. How can anyone enjoy the game from up here? He wondered. He wished the huge stadium screens had been invented so everyone could see the game well. They've not been invented yet like they are now. The spectators around Jack seemed to be having a good time anyway. A couple and their two children were eating tacos and drinking sodas. Others were waving small, multicolored flags. A teenage boy next to Jack was looking through a large pair of binoculars. The man with the bushy mustache held a scratchy, round, portable radio. Jack could hear the sportcaster through the static. Final Cup World Championship. A billion people around the world are watching on television, and over 100,000 spectators are here in the stadium today. Here they come, the boy shouted, looking through the binoculars. Suddenly, all the spectators let out a roar. The two soccer teams were running onto the field. Italy's incredible team has the blue shirts and white shorts, the teenager with the binoculars shouted. Brazil's beautiful team in the yellow shirts and blue shorts. Lay is number 10. Jack couldn't see the numbers of any of the uniforms, couldn't see the colors, much less the numbers on the uniforms. Kick off. There Pelé goes, the commentator said on the crackly radio. Pelé! There! Where? Jack wondered. He really wanted to see Pelé the Great from his seat high in the sky, but the players on the field looked no bigger than rats. The radio commentator shouted excitedly about the game. Jack could only catch pieces of what he was saying. What a pass! Carlos Roberto, captain of Brazil team, hitting the very long ball. Dangerous free kick situation. Italy 0, Brazil 0. With every play, everyone in the huge stadium screamed, whistled, cheered, or booed. Then thousands of Brazil fans jumped to their feet, pumping their fists in the air, screaming, Go! Jack jumped to his feet, too. The teenager with the binoculars shouted. Pelé leaped past the defender. He hit the ball and scored. Jack shook his head. He couldn't believe he missed seeing Pelé make a goal. He really wished he had binoculars, and he really wished he were sitting with Jack and Roberto. Everyone sat down, and Jack listened carefully as he could to the voice on the radio commentator. Free kick. Way up. Beautiful. No wonder Brazil is called the beautiful team. Punching that one way. Dead ball. Nothing the sportscaster said sounded like a secret of greatness to Jack. He hoped Annie was paying attention to the game, checking the ring a lot. Even though he was envious, Jack was still glad Roberto had a great view of the game. If he were sitting up here, Jack thought, he'd have nothing to report to his 8 brothers and sisters. Suddenly, thousands of Italy fans leapt to their seats, screaming, and the older child shouted, Italy scores! Brazil won! Italy won! Jack couldn't wait to switch seats with Annie. Here's a picture. And watch the game up close. If the ring hadn't glowed for her, it would be all up to him. As soon as the radio announcer said halftime, Jack looked at his watch. 12:45. He had 15 minutes to find Annie and Roberto. Jack squeezed past the people sitting in his row and took off down the mountain of stairs. We will pick up with chapter 6 on Friday. It's called Annie and Roberto. So, the goal for Annie and Roberto for this story is they have to find the secret of greatness from Pelé, the soccer player, and they'll know they found it when the ring of truth glows. So that's what that's about. So I hope you guys enjoy this story. We will pick up on Friday. We probably won't finish on Friday. It'll probably be next Monday before we finish this book, and we'll start on another one. So I'm going to stop the recording, guys, and then you all are welcome to jump on your microphones and say bye as you hop